Thank you all for joining us. My name is John Van Etten. I'm very excited to have our session today. I am joined by Professor Stefan Schwarz of the Cologne Business School, and we're here to talk about his use of human synergistics organizational culture inventory in the classroom. So a little bit of a different perspective on how human synergistics tools, and in this case, the OCI, is used. And I think you'll find it very, very interesting. This is a topic that's, I have to say, near and dear to my heart. I've been with human synergistics for about 14 years now, and I was introduced to the OCI and human synergistics as an organization in the classroom in graduate school, as we had the opportunity to use the tool to measure culture and to advise an organization as part of our coursework. It was very interesting, and I still recall it as a great experience that led to great things, including a nice internship in human synergistics research department that's obviously grown into bigger things. So really happy to be able to continue that tradition of using human synergistics tools in the classroom and for educational purposes, which is something that we are always excited to be able to provide. And I have to say, it's been a wonderful collaboration with the Cologne Business School, and especially with Stefan Schwarz. We've been doing this for a little while. I think this was the last year was the 5th year that we've done these projects. Every year we tweak and improve just a little bit of that process, and it seems to have resulted in something that especially the last year's session seemed to be really fantastic. The presentations from the students were outstanding, and anyway, it seems to have been a really great thing. So excited to hear your side of this, so that we can spread the word and learn those great practices. So thank you so much for joining us, Professor Schwarz, and look forward to hearing about OCI and how we use that in the classroom.
John, thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for this nice introduction and the warm and very sympathetic words. Yeah, I can give it back to you. So it's a pleasure to work together with you for 5 years now. With you, John, especially your whole team and human synergistics. But it's not the first contact we had. We had our first contact before, when I was working in the HR department responsible for organizational development at AXA, the big insurance company, global player. And we did this cultural journey together with human synergistics there a couple of years ago. Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah.
Great experiences.
Okay. Yeah,
glad to hear it was.
And we met in Paris, headquarters of AXA, together with Dr. Cook.
I do recall. That was a great trip. Great trip.
So I tried to share my screen to let you participate on the presentation I've prepared for you. Thanks for your interest in this webinar and in my report or talk about this hands-on students project. We did this term or the last term, but also the 5 terms before, together with human synergistics. Yeah? And the title of my talk is Analyzing Organizational Culture with the OCI. And I know you guys, you're all familiar with the organizational culture inventory. Yeah, that's what it is about today. Okay, so let's go into it. So the agenda is that I would like to briefly introduce the CBS International Business School, John. So formerly known as Cologne Business School. We did a rebranding last year, and our marketing department is keen on reminding me that we all should spread out that we are now known as CBS International Business School. Yeah? So I would like to tell you who we are, where we are, what we do, and then I would jump into the focus of today's talk, the hands-on student project. Yeah, what was the aim of the course of the project, and what did the students learn, and how did we cooperate with human synergistics? Yeah, and at the end, we will have time for a Q&A session, and I'm happy to answer all your questions in between. So whenever you have a question, please feel free to interrupt me, raise your hand, or just raise your voice. And so we can do it interactive. That's the way I prefer. And if you want to, just interrupt me. Okay, so briefly, the CBS International Business School. Yeah, we are a private university, mainly located in Cologne. So this is where the former name stems from, so Cologne Business School. And we are an international business school. A lot of students come from all over the world, not in times of Corona, so it's a pity, yeah. But even in times of Corona, we have people from all over the world studying on our campus in Cologne. So our focus is on sustainability, entrepreneurship, and digitalization. And we have 3 campuses. The main campus is located in Cologne with around about 1,600 students, but we're also located in Mainz and very new campus in Potsdam with just a very small number of students right now, but we want to grow and want to expand there. Yeah, so as I said, we are an international business school, 75 nationalities on our campus. We have a really nice campus in Cologne with a nice recreation area in the backyard. And we have a wide network of cooperating partner universities so that our German students can go abroad and that the students from other countries can come to Cologne and study in Germany. Yeah, so we are a hands-on university. So all the professors, all the lecturers come from within the economy. Like me, I have a strong HR background. Yeah, I was working for 15 years in the financial industry in several HR functions. Despite comp and ben, I've done everything in HR. So this is what CBS International Business School is proud of, that all the lecturers have experience in the economy, in the practical business, so that we can transfer our knowledge to the students and prepare them for the real world outside the university, for the business. Yeah, so. As we are a private business school, we are owned by the Klett Verlag, yeah, and we can offer small course sizes, so a maximum of 30 students in the classroom. Most of the courses have less students, so it's a real personal spirit, personal connection between the lecturers, the professors, and the students. So just a quick view of what we offer. We offer bachelor programs, and at the top it's business psychology. I'm a professor for business psychology, especially industrial and work psychology. And we also have master and MBA programs. Yeah, and as you can see, business psychology and management is also part of our master programs, the area I'm teaching in. Okay, so this was a quick jump into the CBS International Business School. Do you have any questions? I'm happy to answer. If not, I'm going to continue. Yeah, so with the main focus of our talk, the hands-on student project, which we did the 5th time, as John said. We always do it in the winter term, which lasts from September to December at our university in cooperation with Human Synergistics. Yeah. So what is the aim of the course I'm teaching there? So I'm teaching a course which is called Evidence-Based Management and Organizational Learning. And for you guys, you may be familiar with evidence-based management. If you are not, here's a brief definition. Yeah, so evidence-based management is about making management decisions, yeah, on the basis of evidence, yeah, on the basis of the best available evidence from multiple sources. So not as a consequence of a gut feeling, yeah, or personal experience, yeah, to base a management decision on evidence, yeah, and multiple sources could be scientific literature, empirical studies, yeah, to have a solid background to make the right decision, or practitioners, professional expertise, yeah, so asking experienced people what experiences they made and what they recommend, and organizational internal data. Yeah, so existing organizational internal data or organizational internal data you are going to gather for your purpose. Yeah, and this is the interface with the OCI, so that the OCI is a really helpful tool for managers, yeah, to gather evidence to base cultural change activities on. Yeah. Okay, and the fourth source could be stakeholders' views and concerns. Yeah, so people from outside the companies, yeah, people like Verbände or people who deliver, yeah, for the company. Yeah, so have external stakeholders' view also included into the decision making. So the overall learning task for the students in this seminar is that they should learn how to base management decisions on evidence, yeah, and using those four sources written down here on the slides. Yeah, so the learning method I have chosen in cooperation with human synergistics is that we use a hands-on approach, yeah, instead of too much theoretical learning. Yeah, I'm quite sure that you guys remember your university times or the times in school. The professor or the teacher was standing in front of you and was talking about all those theoretical stuff, yeah, and it was getting more and more boring over the course of the seminar, yeah, and so I want to avoid that, and I want to include the students into the seminar and want to give them the opportunity to make practical experience, yeah, do it hands-on. So how do I do this? And now I'm going to give you the information about this specific hands-on students project we are doing together with human synergistics. Yeah. In this specific case, my target group is are master students in business psychology. Yeah, so they are in their second year, which means they are close to the finish of their studies. Yeah, they are right in front of their entry into the real business world. Yeah, so they gathered a lot of knowledge during their bachelor and master studies, and now they are nearly ready to go out into the real world. Yeah, so participants are approximately 20 to a maximum of 30 students, as I said. Yeah, around about 20, 24 students on average are participating in such seminars. Yeah. So the students' task in this seminar is that, first of all, they have to find an organization as a cooperation partner which is interested in getting an analysis of its organizational culture. Yeah, so mostly this organization stems from the personal network of the students, yeah, the business of father or mother or another relative, yeah. So, and it has never been a problem to find a cooperation partner, yeah. So we always had enough organizations which yeah, were willing or interested or sometimes keen on participating in this project. Yeah. So then the next part of the task is that after finding the organization, the students are supposed to analyze the organizational culture, yeah, and now I'm coming back to evidence-based management, yeah, by gathering data from multiple sources, yeah. So, and then after gathering data, yeah, so gathering the evidence, yeah, the students are supposed to give management recommendations for cultural change actions on the basis of the best available evidence, yeah. And concrete, students are supposed to gather data from multiple sources, yeah, scientific literature. So as I said, students gathered a lot of theoretical knowledge so far in the bachelor and master studies, so they should use that, yeah. And of course, they should start with the literature research before giving recommendations, yeah. Then they, as the source practitioners expertise, students are supposed to interview managers of the cooperating organization, yeah. And they are supposed to use organizational data. Yeah, so they are supposed to use the organizational culture inventory, the OCI, as well as the data gathered in the interviews with the managers. Yeah, as the organizational internal data to base their recommendations on. So last but not least, and the last source is not always used, because sometimes it's difficult to get information. It depends on the organization. The stakeholders' views, yeah, if available, students gather data from the internet, from customer voices or employee experiences, like in Kununu, yeah. So everything they can gather from external perspectives, yeah, is the last source. So in concrete, how does it look like? What's the student's learning journey? Yeah, the student's learning journey is that first, I divide the whole group into subgroups, yeah, 3 to 4 subgroups, so that each subgroup contains 6 to 7 students, so that it's way easier to work together, to communicate, and to be effective. Yeah. Then, as I said before, students are supposed to find a cooperation partner, one organization per subgroup. So we cooperate with 3 to 4 organizations per term, which stem from their personal networks, as I said before. Yeah. Then, of course, students, and I will give you an insight in this on the next slide, yeah, they, of course, get theoretical input from me as the professor, but also, which is highly, highly appreciated, from human synergistics, yeah. John is giving an inspiring introduction into organizational culture and how culture works model from human synergistics, yeah. So students are prepared with a theoretical background, yeah, to do the project, to do the job, which I'm going to describe in the next bullet points. Yeah. So then students are supposed to gather primary and secondary data. If you're not familiar with primary or secondary data, primary data is the data you are gathering yourself, yeah, for your own purpose. And secondary data is that you use already existing data, yeah, for your purpose. Yeah. So they gather primary data, so they do the OCI, current and ideal, in the other way, yeah, ideal and then current, yeah. And they also do the interviews with the managers, yeah, of the organization. And secondary data, yeah, they try to gather as much secondary data as they can get. So what could that be? Balance sheets or internal reports or the vision, the strategy of the organization, the mission statement, mostly published on the internet page, yeah, whatever they can gather, secondary data they use to analyze the culture of the organization. Yeah. So then next step is that after gathering primary and secondary data, students are supposed to analyze the gathered data. Yeah. So using the OCI report, yeah, which is provided by human synergistics, you all know this support. Yeah, it's report. Sorry. It's 100 pages strong report, yeah, with a lot of detailed information, which is helpful to plan activities for the cultural change. Yeah. So, and also while gathering the data, they get other support from human synergistics, advice, feedback, other material you provide the students, John, to do this analysis properly. Yeah, and after doing this analysis, yeah, they develop recommendations for the cultural change activities. So recommendations for the management of the participating organization, yeah, to foster cultural change, yeah, depending on their needs, on their specific data, on their gaps, on their targets. Yeah. And finally, students are supposed to present their results, yeah, the analysis of the data, yeah, report, OCI report, interview data, secondary data gathered, together with the recommendations the students derived from analyzing the specific situation in the organization. Yeah, and they present their results in a final presentation to the management of the organizations, and also human synergistics is with us and is very helpful in discussing details and answering questions of the organizations. Okay, so finally, so they present their final results in this final presentation, yeah, which is the end of the project, yeah, and yeah, something the students yeah, have to reach. And of course, students get permanent feedback, yeah, from me. So I'm permanently in contact with the students and accompanying their work and answering their questions and yeah, helping them if they get stuck in a topic or so. So this is how it looks. This is an example of our last term. Yeah. So our term lasts from September to beginning of December. So 3 months. Yeah. So the project lasts 3 months. Yeah. And at the beginning, I start with organizational issues. I give them a theoretical introduction into evidence-based management with practical examples. And I have 28 classroom hours to teach. One classroom hour is 45 real minutes. Yeah, and so, but the students have to spend a lot of additional hours working on this project. Yeah, so. Second meeting, I'm going to give them introduction into the philosophy of science and how to gather evidence, primary, secondary data, which I'm going to continue in the third meeting, gathering evidence, qualitative and quantitative methods like doing interviews or doing proper surveys. Yeah, what can you do right or what can you do wrong when doing a survey or doing an interview with someone? Yeah. Then we start jumping into the practical task, and in the third session, students work out their interview guideline. Yeah, so they are supposed to do an interview with the management of the cooperating organization. So they prepare their own interview guideline, yeah, and have time to work out this at this moment of the seminar. Fourth session, I'm going to give an introduction into the topic, organizational culture, and I'm wonderfully supported by John in the fourth session, who is always giving an inspiring talk about how culture works model, and he's giving an introduction into the organizational culture inventory. John, highly appreciated. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Happy I can contribute.
And fifth or sixth session is a short session because I want to create touch points with the students to help them if there are questions, if there are hurdles, and yeah, give them advice. Yeah, and seventh session is a couple of weeks before the final presentation, before the project ends. It's a kind of dry run we are doing with the students together, and human synergistics. John is always participating too. They present their analysis of the OCI with the help of the provided OCI report from human synergistics, yeah, and the interviews and secondary data they gathered. And they also made up their mind about possible recommendations for cultural change actions, activities, yeah. And so they presented in a kind of dry run, just in an internal session to human synergistics and me. And we as a whole team, yeah, we discuss their first drafts and ideas and give advice and elaborate on that so that it's getting better and that our customers, the organizations can profit the most when getting the final presentations. Yeah. So after getting feedback from us, they have a couple of weeks time to elaborate their first drafts and finalize the presentations. And at the end of the term, in this case, at the end of November last year, we did this final presentation, and each group is presenting 30 minutes to the management of the organizations, and all students are participating. Usually in times of COVID, when we do it remotely, sometimes it works a little bit different, but usually all students participate, and the managers of the organizations, of course, as well as John, human synergistics colleagues, and me too. Yeah, so I'm going to evaluate the presentations. Yeah, so which is yeah, the what the students need. They need a mark grade for their performance. Yeah, so The cooperation with human synergistics, as you see, it's a great one, and we get great support from HJS. Yeah, so I'm highly appreciate that they provide free access to cultural analysis for the participating organizations. So that's what's in for them. Yeah, they get an OCI report, and also the students can work with this great instrument. Yeah. So, and yeah, as I said, human synergistics gives us support by John is giving us an interesting, inspiring introduction, and participating in my seminar, giving a guest talk. Thanks, John, again. I always already said that, but also thanks to Marie, yeah, so who's supporting us with all the technical admission of the OCI ideal and OCI current, and she is the working interface with the students. And sometimes this is a little bit of work, yeah, because students are mostly, but not all the time, so organized as the professor wants, yeah, but mostly they are, yeah. Give advice and feedback throughout the whole project. That's what you do, HJS, and you are always helpful, supportive, and patient. And I would like to take the opportunity to say thank you to your whole team, John. You have a great team working together.
Appreciate that. We're happy to. Thank you very much. Yes.
So at the end, I hope what we create with this project is it's a 4 times win situation. Yeah, 4 times win. Yeah, and so what does it mean? It's a win situation for the students because they can do a hands-on project, do practical work, yeah, deepen their theoretical knowledge with practical issues. Yeah, it's a win situation for the organizations because they can profit from this great instrument and get a free organizational culture analysis. Yeah. And it's also a win situation for CBS International Business School or me, so that I can provide such an interesting format, yeah, method to the students and give them the opportunity to make this experience, yeah, which makes us attractive as a business school. Yeah. And at the end, I hope it's a win situation for human synergistics too. Yeah, but maybe
as well.
John, it's up to you to judge that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And, okay, that's great. Yeah, that's great. If it's the case, I'm satisfied as well.
It is the case. We have a long history of academic focus and interest, and we're happy to continue that and continue that in Europe. And it's good exercise for us. I mean, these kind of projects are good for our account managers. I mean, part of what I really like about this project is we really are kind of doing the entire consulting process from initially contacting the client to, making specific recommendations for development. The fact that we're able to do that entire kind of journey within a semester, I think is hugely cool and exciting and hopefully informative thing for students. It's good for us. It gives us practice and being adaptive. We do an unusual kind of project for this work. We in terms of, for example, the number of people who take part, we're doing a very small sample so that we get kind of a flavor of what's going on, if you will. But it's a very good adaptive way for us to practice our skills in building projects. It's also good for us, given the variety of clients that, and this has come up before, but one of the things I love about this process is the variety of organizations that we get in contact with. I think, again, that's especially interesting probably for the students. And but kind of from my perspective, it's so cool to see, 4 or 5 presentations on culture from radically different organizations, different industries, different sizes that are all in a different place trying to achieve a different thing. But culture is still at the heart of how we get things done, kind of regardless of what the business is. And if we can understand and kind of capture that, it makes is so much more empowering to the business to create those kind of changes. So in any case, I also think it's kind of cool to see that, meaning, as you mentioned, we had the painting company, then the group of legal professionals, and all of these different, and again, from the student perspective, they get to see how culture matters and how it plays out in a variety of different organizations, right within one semester. I'm sure it's a very intense experience for them. I'm happy to hear an intensely positive one. Certainly.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that it's a win situation for you too. Thank you very much. That's great. Yeah, so that was my talk, John. I'm done, and I'm open for all your questions. Yeah, so we could start a Q&A session if you would like to.
I'd be very excited to do that. Yes, thank you. Maybe I should pause and see if anyone else has questions before I jump in with mine. We're taking very small samples, usually of one part of the organization. Ideally, if we're in touch with the leadership team, then we're trying to talk to them. I believe we're talking about 10 OCIs, current and ideal. So just enough to get a good, clear idea of especially what should be going on within this business, and then at least regarding whoever we're in, the students are immediately in contact, what is their experience playing out in the business. Mm-hmm. That is not the way we do projects typically with clients. Organizational culture is much bigger than what I'm referring to, sort of the leadership perspective. In many cases, you find that the culture is radically different in other areas of the business that the leaders aren't directly experiencing. And this, by the way, goes directly back to the topic, in my opinion, of evidence-based leadership, because when I talk to organizations who have attempted to address things like organizational culture previously, a lot of weight is put on the perspective of leaders. And while their perspective is valid and relevant, it may be very, very different from what's going on in other parts of the business. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of really fascinating research and data on organizational culture and the extent to which not only it differs throughout the business, but that other parts of the business, if you will, are actually more predictive of the business performance. So if we really want to talk about hard business numbers, things like profitability, sustainability, share price, and so on, those kind of outcome criteria are strongly driven by culture. Mm-hmm. But we can demonstrate they're typically driven by the culture playing out at, for example, the lowest hierarchical levels of the business, those places where people are in direct contact with clients, carrying out the day-to-day work of the organization. So it's critical to understand those parts of the organization in order to make any real deep diagnostic and measurements. So we're doing something a bit different here that fits, I think, for, again, the purpose, which is student learning in this case, but also delivers benefits to the organization, because I really do notice that as these findings are presented to the organizations, it does open their eyes a lot about the topic of culture, that there is a culture going on in our business, that it does seem to be related to all of those other things that we found. And that's another really cool thing. The other, qualitative data and secondary sources of data, a lot of times what we notice, and I think what students notice, is this all starts to kind of line up, right? The profile that we're finding in the culture is reminding us and explaining to us why we're seeing things like the kind of engagement that we're seeing in that organization, and the way that it's functioning. It all starts to fall in place. But having a good measurement and a good framework for capturing those patterns and giving some dialogue around what they are is a hugely impact. I remember the first time when I did this project in university, I presented the results to the board, and I was nervous about doing that. And the feedback that I received was, this is a direct quote, it was, "This was far more helpful and insightful than I ever imagined it would be." So, which is nice to hear, but it really speaks to the tool, and that if we can measure these things, the other interesting thing that you find is that people in the organization are sort of inherently able to recognize it once we can provide them with some data. And again, that helps to make these things tangible and actionable. That was going to be my next question, is the feedback from students. I know it's a lot of content for them, a big challenge to do this kind of holistic process from start to finish. I remember when I did it, a little daunting to present sort of my findings, even though I'm still in university and trying to advise a leadership team on what they might need to think about or address in their organization. So do you hear that as well from students in terms of sort of?
So the feedback is great. So at the end of the seminar, they evaluate the seminar, and I will always have an evaluation from 1.1 to 1.3 on a scale from 1, which is best, to 5, so which is highly above average. Yeah. So at the beginning, to be honest, they moan a little bit, because they notice, well, this is such a lot of work which is coming up, and we have to deliver a lot of things, throughout the whole project, But at the end, they are all thankful, and they are all happy that they did that. And I get frequently emails from students which say, "Oh, thanks for organizing this. It was a great experience, and gives us a good start in real business." And I noticed that at the end, after the final presentations, they are really proud of their results. They see what they did, and they get a good feedback from the organizations and from human synergistics, and they are proud. And not in times of COVID, but before, they go out for a coach, and celebrate their group results. And
Wonderful.
which gives them a good feeling.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Well, when they have that sense at the beginning, which is true, that there's a lot to learn and a lot to do, I guess that also speaks to the fact that you're giving them a good experiential education. That's what it's all about out there.
Yeah.
Good.
It's not only theoretical learning or practical learning, it's always social learning. So they have to cooperate together, come up with a common result, and get to know other working styles, and accommodate with that. So it's social learning, like in real business. When we do a project with other guys, we have to find a common sense.
Yeah, like in constructive, achievement-oriented cultures, give them a challenge that's a little bit bigger than any one of us can do. So helps to encourage us to pull together and do our best. That's great. Very, very good. Another question I wanted to pose to you, I should be able to answer myself, but I'd like to hear from your perspective. I mean, when we look at the steps and processes of this project, it could be done without the OCI, I suppose, is my point, right? We could still go out there and find these organizations, talk to leaders, gather some of this primary and secondary data, still go through the steps of that journey. What is it from your perspective that the OCI brings to this project that would be missing otherwise?
The OCI is a crucial element of this project. I'm teaching evidence-based management. I'm trying to teach that students should use best available evidence. So gathering data. And gathering data with such a well-researched tool, which is developed on a scientific basis, and which is published in peer-reviewed scientific journals. That's a big advantage. And this is what they should learn, to use such tools, which are which have a basis in science. And so this is completely in line with the topic of the course, to use such a great tool. And so it's a crucial element, the OCI.
Good. Happy to hear you say that. It's a big part of what I talk to clients about as well. I mean, whether it's culture, leadership development, teams, or what it may be, before we invest money and time and effort in change, we need to be sure we understand where we are and where we're going, and be precise and informed about where we invest our time and efforts. So happy to hear that's a key as well. Very good. Another question, I don't know whether you've heard from the client organizations that have taken part. Have they reached out to you, or do you get feedback from them in terms of what they appreciate about the process, or
Yeah, so we get immediate feedback after the final presentations, and from time to time, I get an email afterwards, which always says, "Okay, thanks for giving us the opportunity to participate." As I said, first we only did that for our son, daughter, or the student involved, which we know, but afterwards we profited a lot from that, and the message is frequently that they say, "Okay, now we start working on organizational culture," and so as it is an eye opener, and they are glad for the opportunity they had to participate and get the report, and get some initial advice. And the students, from their young, fresh perspective, sometimes have interesting ideas, creative ideas, which is another perspective the management does not have, because frequently the management is much older, And I must admit, from time to time, the actions the students develop don't fit to the cost constraints of the organizations, most of the groups take care about that, yeah, and they talk to the client before. So what is possible, what is not possible. So they make tailor-made activities, and so the organizations profit from the recommendation of the students very much. It's one of the learning tasks for the students, yeah. So that how to deliver results, yeah. Maybe if a culture is not that constructive as wanted, yeah, politely, yeah, and so that the management is not, yeah, is is not blamed for that or something, yeah. So this is what we talk about in advance, yeah. So this is what I teach them, yeah, to deliver such results, yeah, to be sensitive, yeah, and to always give something positive up front, yeah, and say, okay, you did a lot of good things so far, yeah, but here are some gaps, yeah. Try to focus on them, yeah, to improve, yeah. And to be honest, it's not 5 or 6 people from the management, it's 1 or 2, yeah. So so it's not such a big project for the organizations that they show up with 5 top management people, yeah. Yeah, but it is an atmosphere of interest. They are sometimes the managers are asking critical questions, yeah, and sometimes they are really open to discuss and say, okay, that's great, or sometimes they only listen, yeah, and say thank you and go home. It depends, yeah, but it's always a very constructive and very so they really
realistic.
value the
Yeah.
efforts of the students, yeah, and say thank you. They appreciate that.
I mean, everything you're saying is the same sort of thing we see from clients, right? How we bring this information across to the leadership team, how we communicate this. I mean, none of the information that we're gathering and providing is really good news, bad news, or telling you what you're doing right versus what you're doing wrong. A lot of what I talk about with culture is what we're capturing is sort of what's taking place currently as compared to your description, to be honest with you, of what should be going on in this organization. So it's really not about right, wrong, and good and bad, but it's more about where are we now, where are we going, understanding this as a starting point. And that communicating that to clients is very important so that we can take this not as criticism, but as an opportunity to learn something about our business that otherwise is very difficult to recognize and somewhat intangible. And that's a big part of it. But again, I think a big part of a realistic project, that is exactly the kind of thing that we and the consultants and coaches who use our tools in practice have to deal with and have to think about. How do we bring this across so that we understand the relevance of it? We don't take it as criticism among any of us, but rather, again, a starting point for our journey and a clear understanding of where we're going and some best practices on how to take those initial steps to get there.
Every term we discuss the next semester with human synergistic, and we make up our minds about what can we improve. So one improvement was about the final presentations. Yeah. So at the very beginning, John, please help me. We only did the final presentations. So we did it separately. Yeah. So not
Correct.
with the whole group. Yeah. Just the subgroup, different dates and so on. And I really value if there is one date with the final presentation that the whole group, yeah, is participating in all the students are participating in all the final presentations. So because they can learn from seeing all the others presenting, or how other cultures look like, or how other managers react, or which questions they ask, yeah, to be better prepared for their business future. Yeah. So this is what we improved. Okay, in times of COVID, we do it digitally. Yeah. So I prefer the classroom situation, and so this is a event. Students dress well like consultants, yeah, and they train this presentation, business presentation in front of the management. They are nervous, yeah, but they cope with it, and this is another added value for the students. Yeah?
At one point very early on, the students were sort of given the OCI reports, and we helped to explain that content, but then it was up to them to sort of put all of this together and present. So now we have another little meeting in between where they sort of present to us, I guess, Stefan and myself, kind of go through their draft, and then we can give them some additional help, some findings. As you know, OCI reports are quite extensive and detailed, so I try to point out a few things if anything was overlooked. And then I think gives them a lot more confidence as well, going into the final presentation, that they're on solid ground and have the right ideas. So yeah. I had one more, if you have the patience for it. I mean, from my perspective, this is really an ideal fit given the course that you're teaching. I mean, evidence-based management and decisions, it's all about what human synergistics is interested in as well, providing good, reliable information so that we can make informed choices. Can you think, however, are there other courses, other areas of education that you think this kind of tool could be helpful for, other than?
Yeah, I think we can widen the range of possible seminars or courses. Yeah, so I think the method is suitable for all management courses. Yeah, because management, it's about steering a company, and steering a company means improving performance, improving collaboration. It's all about culture. Yeah. And so all the management courses are suitable for such a format. Yeah, and nearly all the seminars we give at CBS International Business School, yeah, because this is our focus. Yeah, and so you can go into psychology, into HR, into general management, international business. So with the intercultural aspects, yeah, leadership courses, of course. Yeah, so you can use it there. Yeah, so it's a wide range of courses.
Yeah, very good. That makes sense to me. I look forward to that as well. Thank you very much for the insights.
Thank you very much,
you so much.
John. Thanks for having
Very
me,
nice.
and thanks for your for asking nice and great questions, and for your interest. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your collaboration. It's very nice to work with you, and I look forward to next semester.
Pleasure is on my side.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day.